Welcome, everyone, to the latest episode of the Quarter Disorder podcast. This is episode 8 of the show, and this episode is being recorded on Thursday night, March 14th, 2024. I'm your host, Tim Bowman, and joining me is my co-host, Lewis, who is also returning from a shutdown open beta. How's it going, Lewis?
It's ready for vacation, brother. It's been 5 years.
That's way too long to wait for like your next vacation, right? 5 years?
Yeah. I mean, that's half a decade, bro. It's too much.
Yeah. But hopefully your vacation goes well. And on this episode, we're going to be talking about a bunch of TV, movie, and gaming news. But before we get into the episode, I just want to remind everyone how they can listen and support the show. This podcast is available on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. We have a channel dedicated to the show on YouTube that can be found under Quarter Disorder Podcast. So subscribe to us on there. And we put full episodes on there with timestamps. So it's a great way to listen to the show. We're also available wherever else you get your podcasts. We have an RSS feed that you can plug in to download shows that way too. And this episode and every other episode of the podcast have show notes and an outline to follow that will have links and other notes to all the topics we talk about on this episode. You can find those show notes by going to the website at quarterdisorderpodcast.com or quarterdisorder.com. At the top of the homepage is a podcast section dedicated to the show. If you click into there, you'll find all our links and show notes dedicated to each episode. The show notes on the website will also have the full episode of this podcast included in there. So if you want to listen to the show directly on the website, you can do it that way too. We're also on social media, so be sure to give us a follow on the platforms you're on. We're on Threads, Facebook, Blue Sky, Mastodon, basically everything. So follow us on social media to get the updates of the show and when we post new episodes. All our social links for the podcast can be found by going to the website at quarterdisorderpodcast.com and going into the podcast section at the top of the homepage. Most of our social handles are under Quarter Disorder Podcast, but some, like Twitter, are different because of character limitations, so just check out the website for all our official social links. You can also leave some comments on the show about anything we talked about for this episode or previous episodes. We appreciate any feedback you can give us, good or bad. So you can drop a comment under this episode show notes or by emailing us at feedback@quarterdisorderpodcast.com. You can also leave comments on our YouTube channel for each episode, and we can check those out there. We would really appreciate any comments or feedback you might have, as it helps us get better at doing the show and connecting with all of you out there too. And I also want to mention that we do have a new feedback survey for anyone who's listened to the podcast. It's just a quick survey that you can fill out. And the link to the survey will be in this episode's show notes as well as on quarterdisorderpodcast.com. If you go to the homepage and click under the podcast section, you'll find the survey there. And we really appreciate you completing the survey as it helps us make the show better. And finally, if you're enjoying the podcast, help us out and give us a review on Spotify and Apple. Give us a star rating on there and leave us a written review, or give us a thumbs up on YouTube. This all helps the show out and gets the word out there about the show. So we really appreciate that. And now moving on to the episode and what we've been watching this week. Lewis, what have you been watching on TV?
So I checked out the new episode of Dark Side of the Ring on season 5, episode 2, and it's over one of my favorite. It's derogatory to wrestlers, but Mick Carter from WCW, Buff Bagwell, and this episode covers his career and his life growing up. What an incredible story this man had on Dark Side. It got dark a couple of times in his life, but as a very a pro wrestler's life is kind of crazy, and I'd say Buff Bagwell, his life is definitely one of the craziest ones that I've seen on screen. I was kind of saddened how it turned out for him in WWF, which is now WWE. But to see him now, how he's doing, it's a lot better than it was a couple years back, because it goes into deep, dark territories of, let's just say, dark times in his life. They cover things from the crazy story about him shooting his father and his mom being his assistant during the WCW, era during the Attitude Era, and you see how he is he is pretty much a classic narcissist in the way, but he's kind of going out of that now currently. But you could just see those changes throughout the years, from good to bad to good again. I highly recommend everyone watch this episode, actually, just because he's just a likable guy, right? So, do you think he was a missed opportunity of a top star since you're a pro wrestling fan.
I think yes and no. I don't think because this was like, 25 years ago in like 2001, he didn't really make that transition to the WWF, and they kind of just messed with his career. And then I don't think he did much after that. So it's kind of hard to tell.
Oh, by the way, I'm glad you mentioned that because he actually there's a story here that actually leads to why he was released, like the real reason why.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm sure there's like a story behind that because it was kind of odd. But he was
Yes,
always like an eccentric character. Like I'm sure if you like watch the show, you'd be like, oh, this guy's really like personable.
yes,
Like he has like a big personality. I do have one question though. Does Buff still have the stuff?
always and forever. He never
Oh,
lost it.
he
To be
never lost
honest,
it.
he
Okay.
never lost it. he's a,
So,
by the way, he's one of those characters that you can. He seems very approachable because you know how over the top he is. But if you he's one of those guys. If you make up like, if you really, really make him mad, he will not back down. He will command the room, and but other than that, he's a nice guy.
yeah, if you're not if any listeners out there are not familiar with, wrestling or Buff Bagwell the wrestler, just do a quick Google search for Buff Bagwell, and he used to wear this like he was like this really jacked muscular guy and he used to wear this like ridiculously big tall hat to the ring. So if you don't know who this guy is, just do a quick Google search and look that
What
up, and you'll just have
I,
like a good laugh because it's like
I
so crazy.
I would have to add, make sure your save Google searches on because he's done some things in his career that
Oh,
later
really?
on.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so please turn on the safe search engine, okay, folks.
I did not know that. So
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So yeah, but what a great series so far. I'm glad this docuseries is still going strong in terms of because there's certain wrestlers like I told you about Earthquake last week. I wasn't really like a big fan of, but then they go into his live and you really find out who this person was, and Earthquake was an amazing person. Buff, obviously, he was one of my favorite mid carders, and he's just one of those guys who I wish nothing but the best for because he's a recovering addict. And the show overall was very entertaining from start to finish, actually.
Cool, yeah. So the Dark Side's, like I said, usually a pretty good show, even for non-wrestling fans. So if you're listening, you're kind of curious about the lives of that kind of crazy industry. It's a really interesting show to check out that Vice does, and this is on Hulu, I believe, too, right? Or
Yes. Hmm.
okay, cool. So people can check that out. Um, Great. So like what I've been watching this week is I moved on to season 2 of Godfather of Harlem. So I've been talking about that show on the last couple of episodes of this podcast. And season 2 takes place a few months after the events of season 1. There was kind of a crazy showdown at the end of season 1 that leads directly into season 2. So it's just kind of interesting because in the story, it's supposedly like a couple months or like 90 days or whatever, but some of the characters look like they age like 5 years in the span of like 30 days. I don't,
Oh my God.
so it's kind of like you notice some of the characters look like way older, but in the time frame, it's only been a couple of months. But season 2, without getting too heavy in the spoilers, is kind of dealing with Bumpy Johnson still moving in to take over, take back Harlem from the Italians, and what his plans are for that. And it's getting really, really crazy. And the acting is like tremendous. Like there was like a lot of great scenes on this particular episode. So I think season 2 is probably the same length, 10 episodes or so. This is on Hulu. Highly recommend the show. And also continuing with Curb Your Enthusiasm's final season 12. They're on episode 6 now, which dropped last Sunday night. And this one was really funny. Larry David, one of the main jokes was he was saying how you waste so much time like going to the bathroom and using number one, like urinating. So what he decided to do every time he takes like a piss is to like practice and memorize, I believe, Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. So that's kind of one of the gags and kind of plays into the story. And Larry's a newly minted single man. So he's, he was dealing with a kind of a crazy relationship he was trying to get out of. And now he's kind of single. So it's really interesting the antics he gets into. It was a really funny episode. And kind of don't want it to end, but they're kind of, I think it's at the halfway point, but definitely worth watching and still pretty funny for a final season. So, have you checked out any of these episodes yet?
Oh no, man. I think I stopped like at season 6 from what I remember,
Hmm.
and then I just started working like crazy after that. But it's one of those shows I always wanted to go back to. So
Yeah,
yeah, hopefully soon I
mhm.
can watch.
It's really easy too, because like the episodes are maybe like 35, 40 minutes. So,
And the show's
uh,
incredibly funny. That's another
hilarious.
reason why.
Yeah,
So
hilarious. Yeah, and just the plots that he gets into is really crazy too. So, so that's what I've been watching. Continuing some of the shows we've been talking about the past few weeks. And why don't we get into what we've been playing? So I have a couple games here that are new additions to the show here. So the first game I started playing really the past week or two was this game called High Water. I played it on Xbox Series X, and this is a independent game from a Serbian studio um, that originally actually released on mobile devices as part of Netflix games last year in 2023, and now it's coming to consoles. The game was always designed for consoles. I think they got like the Netflix deal and then did that exclusivity for about a year, and now they're kind of bringing it to PC and consoles. But essentially, the game is about an ecological disaster destroys the earth, and there's just huge levels of water everywhere and astronomical like water heights everywhere, and cities are overtaken by floods and things like that. And you play as a young guy named Nikos who's basically trying to survive. And there's a rumor in the game world that the elites and super rich are boarded up in this kind of like safety city, and they're going to be leaving for Mars on a couple of rocket ships. So Nikos wants to get on that ship and get off the planet. And the game is features kind of like low level poly graphics, but really great design. And the actual gameplay consists of turn based strategic combat. So like there'll be during enemy encounters, there'll be a map that you're on with your characters, and you can kind of move on certain tiles, use things in the environment. Characters have special abilities and things like that. So really great game. Kind of surprised me because I didn't really know too much about it before playing it. I was given a review code by the publisher for this, and published a review actually this morning. So if you're interested in the game and checking out the review, you can go to my website at timbowmanmedia.com, and I have the review on the homepage there. But really great game, really great story, has a lot of funny satire and humor with it as well. Just really great story and characters. Really love the gameplay as far as the turn-based strategy. Because I'm not really usually into those games, but it adds like a lot of what I feel are unique features as far as like environmental stuff you can do. You can like there'll be certain items on the map that you can use against enemies, like knocking over a tree, or there'll be like bookshelves you can knock over on them, or just all sorts of crazy stuff. And each battle felt like it was uniquely designed and not really like randomized. So really unique game. Really great story. Had really great music too. So it's kind of out now for all consoles and PC on Steam and Epic Game Store for $20, and that just came out today. Highly recommend you check it out. Definitely worth $20. Takes about maybe 8 to 10 hours to finish the story mode. So really, really good stuff. And the second game I've been playing is something I mentioned on the show before that was part of Steam's Next Fest demos several weeks ago. This one is called Anti-Paint or Anti-Paint, and it's essentially a shoot 'em up, shmup type vampire survivor roguelike. About 10 different genres, explanations there. But if you like kind of games like Geometry Wars and Vampire Survivors, you really like this game. It's kind of like an arcade feel, and you basically play as a paintbrush who is shooting paint at globs of other paint and making like pieces of artwork on the level. So you get like power ups and money and points and like a skill rating and stuff like that. So it's very similar to those type of other games. And the boss fights include like famous works of art, like the Mona Lisa or all these other stuff that like they're super animated that you have to defeat. Game is really awesome. It actually just came out a few days ago, and it's on discount right now for the first week, so it was like I think it's normally going to be $10, and I got it for 20% off. So really recommended. Super fun game. The full game has a lot more, I would say, powers and content than the demo had that I talked about earlier on the show. So highly recommended. I don't think it's coming to console, so if you have like a PC and play on Steam, I really recommend this game because it's a lot of fun and very creative. So those are the two
It's pretty
games.
cool.
Yeah, those are the two games I've been playing. And what have you been into, Lewis?
I've been continuing my journey in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and not dying. And even though I hit the R1 button, the block, I still die a lot. I've been using a lot of Phoenix Down. I've been working on side quests currently. Before I continue on, even to the chapter 2, actually, believe it or not, I'm having so much fun. Actually, just diving in the grasslands and trying to build myself up very strong so I can take on, the big bosses that are coming along in the game. Because I encountered my first big boss in a side quest, and I had a hard time. I got killed basically, and thank God I had like a couple of Phoenix Downs to bring Cloud back. I am glad I have Aerith on my team, believe it or not.
So was this like a boss fight that you weren't supposed to like encounter because you're too like low level, like those kind of boss fights in RPGs, or were you like at the point you should be fighting them?
Well, we're having a hard. We talked about this last week. How we're having a hard time just regular enemies just kind of like beating on us, even though we were hitting R1. We're having a hard time hitting R1 to block successfully.
Yeah.
So just imagine just a boss who was like level 25 and you're level 22. The power difference is still large, right? And me having a hard time blocking attacks, I just started using the good old, hey, I'm an Elden Ring player, and let me just hit circle so I can just roll. That's my new defense.
Do a barrel roll, basically.
Yeah, just do a barrel roll, Star Fox style. Yeah, but incredible first boss I encountered. I won't reveal who it was, but just incredible boss fights. I kind of noticed do you remember in the Final Fantasy OG whenever they would kind of like to try to jump on a certain area, they would do like this ridiculous like jump.
Yeah, I do
you
remember
remember?
that. Yeah, it was
Okay.
like super crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, so I kind of noticed playing today that they do it as well, but it's like very smooth as you're trying to climb like certain areas, like let's say a mountain, they'll do that same jump, but like in the smoother transition and not look so goofy. But it's the same jump essentially. I was very in awe, like when I was playing today. Believe it or not, you should definitely check it out. The nostalgia will hit you as soon as you like notice it.
Yeah, I definitely will remember that because I do remember that from the original PlayStation 1 game. Like some of the animations were like that. So,
Yeah, what an incredible game, I gotta say so far. The voice acting I've noticed too is just really top tier.
so do you think it's so far from what you played? Do you think it's an improvement over the original remake from a couple years ago, or is it too early to tell?
Yes, I'd say it is because I kind of it's two different games, right? Because well, it's weird. It's three different games. You got the OG, right? You got the remake, which felt very linear, and the camera was just so tight on you. And then you got this brand new game that just came out recently, and it just feels so open. They're all not the same game, believe it or not. It's just hard to. It's like we talk about retelling story wise. They're retelling gameplay wise at the same time, and I think that's a feat I've never seen in gaming, believe it or not.
Yeah, because they're trying to do a lot with the remake, and I feel like they've probably taken some lessons from the original from 2020,
Mm-hmm.
and now this is like part two, so they really like expanded upon it. So,
Can you imagine part 3?
yeah, we'll probably play that game in like what 2029 or something.
I hope not. Can you
Like,
imagine? Yeah, I
yeah.
played this when I was 7 years old. How old are you now? 40?
So basically, like if like part three ever comes out, it'll be like essentially like a 300-hour game, right? If
Oh my gosh.
the,
Oh no,
the
they're gonna release it. They're gonna have to make the money back. I mean, they
yeah,
know this game will sell. This game is an incredible large IP on its own. Like forget the IP Final Fantasy. I'm talking just Final Fantasy 7. The cast, the characters, they're really, really a big draw for Square Enix, and they know this.
Yeah, that's always been their main. They always go back to Final Fantasy VII in some way. Like
Mm-hmm.
even though,
Whether it's like figures, like for like collectibles and stuff like that. The movie they released, Advent Children, the other spin-off games that came out on on PS2, and it's like, yeah, when they pulled the trigger on for the remake, they knew what they were doing.
yeah. So we do have some Final Fantasy news later in the show that we get into. But did you have any other thoughts about Rebirth you wanted to talk about, or?
So I kind of hope that I can beat this game pretty soon. It's not looking like that, but I'm having a great time so far. So far, so good, guys.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't get a chance to play it this past week. I'm gonna jump into it this weekend a lot more and get into some stuff, really trying to get into the story. So I will beat it at some point this year.
Hmm.
I'm making that declaration right now. So you can
He's
hold
not
me
beating
to
it,
it.
guys. He's not beating
I'm not
it.
beating it. You can hold me to it.
I
I got
will.
until December 31st, right? So
I know you said that about Zelda as well.
yeah, but we're talking Final Fantasy here.
Okay.
Zelda. Bringing up Zelda again? Okay.
Always and forever.
Yeah. But I still need to play Zelda too. But Rebirth, I'm going to get into this weekend. And sounds like you're having a good time with it. So
Hmm.
interesting, they haven't really released any sales numbers yet. Usually for these big games, they say like, oh, we sold 5 million copies in 24 hours or something like that. But I haven't really seen
Yeah.
anything about that.
Yeah.
But I'm
Same.
sure it's
Hmm.
doing pretty well because everyone's still playing it. But all right, so moving on to some TV and movie news. There was a lot going on this past week. Some of the main stuff last Sunday was actually the 96th Oscar Awards. So I did not see the show, but I kind of did get a rundown of the big winners and stuff. Did you check out any of the clips or speeches or anything? Or
I just saw the bit between Arnold Schwarzenegger, Danny DeVito, and Michael Keaton, the
yeah,
Batman bit. That
that
was
was great.
incredible.
Hmm. Yeah, he could still jump into Batman. Like Keaton's ready to go. Like
I
he can
know.
still do it.
Warner
Um,
Brothers, though, they need to make it happen. It's up to them.
Yep. But so some of the big winners was for this year's Oscars was Oppenheimer, which won 7 Academy Awards, and it won for Best Actor with Cillian Murphy and Best Director for Christopher Nolan. So those are like really some of the key categories there. Took home a lot of awards, and they were nominated for tons of stuff too. So that was one of my favorite movies of last year. So I think it's pretty deserving. I think Robert Downey Jr. also won Best Supporting Actor, I believe.
Best
So
comeback ever, man. From
yeah,
prison to an Oscar.
he was phenomenal in that movie. Is that kind of like foil to Oppenheimer? Really great, tremendous acting. And Godzilla also won an Oscar for the first time with Godzilla minus one, and it won in the VFX category. And according to Variety, it's also the Hollywood Reporter, it's the first time in decades that a non-US studio film has won the category. So that's pretty cool.
That's cool.
Godzilla's been around forever too. It was like I think like what 50 years or something, or since the
It has to be over 50, right?
yeah yeah. But Godzilla minus one was one of my favorite movies of last year too. Did you see that in the theater?
Oh no, I need to watch that though. I
That
always
one is
amazing.
phenomenal, amazing. So such a cool movie, especially like in
So
that theater setting
so Sidebar, hold on, Sidebar. I, my, I've only ever seen the 1999 version, believe it or
with
not.
Matthew Broderick or whatever the
Yeah,
Ferris Bueller guy.
did you see it? Did you see it?
Yeah, back when we were kids. Yeah, I saw
Okay,
that.
so
Yeah.
so did you like it or not?
I think it was okay from what I remember. It's been probably like 25 years or whatever since I've seen it, but I don't think it was like a true Godzilla movie compared to like the classics and
Yeah,
stuff.
I like that. I mean,
Mhm.
I'll be honest. I really liked it whenever I was a kid. I don't know. I haven't seen it in years either, but I just always thought it was funny how the creators of Godzilla had Godzilla kill the 1999 version Godzilla on screen.
Yeah, I don't remember that. I don't so
You don't remember that? Oh yeah, they
no, I
did
don't.
that just because they just hated the fact that they created this version of Godzilla that looked so weird.
Yeah. But as far as Godzilla minus one, that is a fantastic film that everybody should watch and really deserving for that sound effect category because it really was pretty fantastic. Some of the other winners was for Best Actress was Emma Stone, who won for her movie Poor Things. which I have not seen, but I did notice it was on Hulu. So if you haven't seen that movie, you can check it out on Hulu. And I was kind of surprised that there was no wins, no Oscar wins for Killers of the Flower Moon from Martin Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio and others. So I believe her name is Lily Gladstone, who played the
Mhm.
lead female role. Like she should have won,
So
maybe for
so
Best Actress, but I guess Emma Stone did a good job too. So it's hard to
so
say.
did you feel like Cillian Murphy wasn't compared to Leonardo DiCaprio since
He was,
um
but yeah, I think Murphy should have won.
mhm,
Um, but Killers of the Flower Moon was one of my favorite movies too, and also inspired me to actually read the book that it was based on,
uh-huh.
which is even crazier. Like when you read about the story that what they did to like the Native Americans in Oklahoma, it's just like insane. So it was
So what
actually
it-
based on the book.
what categories would you think they should have won?
Um, Probably I was gonna say maybe Best Actress. I don't think it was gonna win Best Movie because of Oppenheimer,
Uh-huh.
but maybe Best Actress. I thought, and I'm not
Yeah.
really sure. Looking at the other categories, they were nominated for other stuff too, but
Yeah.
they didn't win anything. But it's
Oh wow.
definitely a movie worth watching. It's on Apple TV. You can stream that, and I'm probably on Blu-ray too. I really recommend that movie. It's an awesome movie with a really like important message that I didn't really know about, and they didn't really teach it in schools either
Oh
about
wow.
what happened to the Oklahoma native population and how they were kind of like tricked out of their money and all this really crazy stuff. So they really did a great job. But like we said, the big winner was Oppenheimer coming out of that. And are you gonna see the movie now that it's won all this stuff at some point? Does that kind of motivate you more to?
By December 31st, I'm just playing. I'm probably gonna watch it
Yeah,
in the airplane.
yeah, yeah. I was like, man, that's a long time to watch. Yeah, it's a good yeah, it's a probably a good airplane movie, good flight movie, I would think.
Yeah.
So, but moving on to the next kind of topic here is the new Mario movie has been announced. So on March 10th, they did like I guess it's the official Mario Day, and they kind of stylize it like March 10th, but it's like Mario.
Okay. When
So
did this become a thing, by the way? I mean, I know it's been around for a little bit that
I
I
think
know
it
of
was
at least.
pretty recently, maybe a few years ago, or maybe
Okay.
longer, but um, it's been a thing. Like like Star Wars has May the 5th, and I guess
But
Mario
but
has.
I- but I think but I'm glad Nintendo's more involved because they're actually doing things unlike Star Wars, where it's just kind of like us
Mhm.
celebrating Star Wars, but it's actually Nintendo doing things for the
Yeah,
fans and
Star Wars.
products.
I think Star Wars they do stuff for the May 5th thing, but this year Nintendo announced a bunch of stuff on March 10th. I think they just kind of looked at the calendar and said like, okay, what can we stylize Mario with? And March 10th was the closest. So I don't know. I don't know if March 10th has any significance to like the series history or whatever. I think it's just more
Yeah.
of like it's Mario Day. But they announced the next Mario animated movie.
Hmm.
It's coming out on April 3rd, 2026. There really wasn't any plot details as far as that, but it's coming again from Illumination and Nintendo. But it's not officially called a sequel yet, so they're not really. I'm not sure if it's a direct follow up or maybe they're going to do something different. But that is coming in 2026.
I'm excited. I love the movie so much, so I'm really looking forward to this, and I
Me
can't wait
too.
to take my son.
Yeah, that's It was like surprising how good that movie turned out.
Yeah, I was afraid. I was scared it
Given
was gonna bomb and everything. It wasn't gonna be as good, but I'm glad everything was like amazing.
given everything with it, yeah, it was a fantastic animated movie, probably one of the
Hmm.
best.
Hmm.
So another movie announcement. It's kind of weird for all you rock fans and metalheads out there. This is Spinal Tap 2 has begun filming. So for those that are not aware, the Spinal Tap was like a what do you call like a mockumentary in originally released in 1984 of like a rock band called Spinal Tap. They went on tour and did all this stuff. So now a sequel's coming about what is that like? How many years is that? 40?
40.
It's over 40
That's
years.
insane, dude.
So basically, the plot, which is basically the same Spinal Tap guys, the same actors are coming back, and they're reuniting following a 15-year hiatus for one final concert. So I think it's following the same sort of like style of the first movie, and Rob Reiner is directing it again, who made the first film. And according to Variety, the production has also, this is a quote from Variety, has also confirmed its cameos with Questlove and Trisha Yearwood joining the already announced lineup of Elton John, Paul McCartney, and Garth Brooks. So that's an interesting cast. Kind of like a weird movie because I don't think at the mainstream level like people listen to rock or heavy music anymore. It's more like an underground thing. Like there's no mainstream rock bands anymore. It's all
So
like,
can I ask you saw the original?
no, unfortunately that's my claim to shame. I have never seen it, which is
Really?
funny because I'm like so into like music and metal and rock, and I've never seen
Yeah.
it.
I mean,
But
I
the
always saw
famous,
like I always saw it everywhere, right? Like just the DVD. I was always like, is this? I always thought it was like a real thing, right? Like, oh, it's a tour movie, I guess, right? Where you see them
that's the whole
perform
joke.
concert.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that's awesome. So then, just now announcing this, it makes me want to go see the first one now because it's 40 years later.
it's so weird because like it came out in '84 when like like hard rock was at the top of the charts, right? Like you
Yeah,
had all these bands on like MTV and the radio, and now there's like none. Like all you have at like the mainstream level is like weird like rappers and
yeah,
just stuff like that. Like you don't have any sort of like rock bands or even metal bands. It's all like you have to kind of like go look for these bands yourself.
hmm
So it's interesting that's coming out now. Like it kind of would have made more sense to release this in like at least like the early 2000s because there was still like a lot of mainstream hard rock bands, but
yeah.
now there's not. But I
I
think
don't
it's
know,
going to
but
be interesting.
I don't know. You always hear like Kiss retired too, like even today, right? And they always retire
Yeah,
like every few years, so it's kind of like maybe it's still kind of relevant. You get me?
I think it's going to be funny. I hope it turns out good. It just kind of, I mean, like the cameos are kind of weird, like Garth Brooks. Like I'm not really like,
Yeah, I don't know about, but the other two, yeah, Elton John and Paul McCartney, I get, but I'm not familiar with Garth Brooks like that. You know, I don't really listen to
no,
his music, but
I don't really. When I think of Garth Brooks, I don't think of like rock and roll
hard
and
rock, right? Hey,
yeah,
you never know, man. Maybe he might bust out something in this movie where you're like, all right, Garth Brooks is okay. He's into rock.
yeah. So that's going to be filming, probably coming out. I don't know when it's coming out. They haven't. I don't think they set a date, but I just thought that was kind of a crazy announcement. And show we talked about last week, Fallout, that's coming to Amazon Prime streaming on April. There was an interview with Todd Howard, who is the kind of the top guy at Bethesda who makes the Fallout games and the CEO there. And it's kind of been known that Fallout 5 is in development. And he's basically advising the Fallout TV show people as far as like story plots and character development and things like that. And he had a quote that essentially he told them not to include certain stuff because it could potentially be in Fallout 5. And the quote is here from an interview with Den of Geek, where Howard said, well, there were some things that I said, don't do this because we're going to do that in Fallout 5. And goes on to say, it wasn't just a translation of an existing story. It was what would the next thing be? And it happens to be a TV show. So the evolution of Fallout. So he's definitely got some ideas for Fallout 5, but it seems to be the show is going to be more steeped in like a origin story rather than taking stuff for a potential new game.
How do you feel about his quote?
Um, I don't know. I'm interested in Fallout 5, like for sure. Like I want to play that because I love
Yeah.
Fallout.
Well, I mean, just him telling them like, "Hey guys, that sounds like a great idea, but don't use that because we're going to use that in the game."
Or he's like telling them, "Oh, it's a great idea. I'm gonna lift it for the game." Like he's just
Yeah,
telling them
yeah,
that. He's
yeah.
just
It's
telling them
like,
that.
who told you this? Did somebody tell you this? Because that's for my game.
Yeah,
It's a weird thing to say. I don't
yeah.
know. I
But
kind
I
of like
mean,
that this.
it does make
Mm.
sense. Like you don't want maybe major plot stuff spoiled for your big upcoming game like that. So at least he's kind of
But
advising them on the show in that way.
but but it's a TV show. So there's writers. I mean, I'm pretty sure they're not like telling, "Hey, Todd, so what are you doing for Fallout 5? Oh, really interesting. I just wrote this out. It sounded just like that." But it's like him telling
It
them,
is
"Hey,
curious. Yeah, what I mean, I would like to maybe like a follow up, like
yeah,
is it his ideas or something like the show came up with that he's like, oh, that's a good idea. I'm gonna
yeah."
put that in there. put that in the
Let's see.
show.
Let's
But
let's see how it turns out. I'm excited for this show. By the way, I'm very excited.
me too. Yeah, in April, everything comes on at once. So Amazon's dropping all the episodes at the same time. So,
Mm-hmm.
and as we talked about last week, there's a trailer available, so you can go watch that and see for yourself how the show is going to look. And some other news here, Giancarlo Esposito wants to play Professor X and have Denzel Washington play Magneto in a kind of, I guess, dream scenario future X-Men film. And Esposito is the guy from Breaking Bad. Has been in a ton of stuff. He's actually in that show I'm watching, Godfather of Harlem. He plays a kind of like a preacher there who's kind of sinful in nature, I guess you would say, while being at the pulpit. But fantastic actor, and he did an interview with Empire recently where he said, it's kind of a brief quote. He just kind of said it would be great to have Denzel in the potential movie with him. Previously in January, he was on the Jimmy Fallon late night show, and he said, quote, "I want to play a good guy. Charles is smart. He's good, but I feel as if there may be some mileage with me and Marvel. I know I love what they do. I know I love creativity. So what? So who knows what could happen?" He just keep putting it out there. That's what his quote. So he's really trying to like campaign to get in like an X-Men movie. I think he would be really great in like that Marvel
I think,
universe.
yeah. Man, I want to know. I wouldn't put him as Professor X. I would definitely put him as Magneto, and I would have Denzel as Professor X.
Yeah. I don't know if Denzel would ever do a Marvel movie. I think it's just kind of dream scenario, but
Yeah, big time dream scenario. I don't even know. Yeah, I couldn't play some. I can't. Well, I mean, he could always be anybody, but I'm just saying, in this situation, yeah, as
I
Magneto, I don't think so. You know, Esposito has that real stern look that
he
Magneto would,
he
would have
he,
when looking at the X-Men.
he plays like a really good bad guy.
Yeah, incredible
So
bad guy.
like it's maybe like the roles were reversed.
Yeah, definitely.
But he said he wants to play a good guy, so maybe he wants to do more of that. And then he's really been out there like kind of campaigning for it for
Yeah,
whatever X-Men movie is in the future. I think it's kind of in limbo right now, but maybe we'll see him, because I think that would be really cool if he's like in Marvel in some way. I think that would be really cool, especially like
yeah,
on
that'd
an
be awesome.
X-Men
Yeah.
X-Men thing. And speaking of X-Men, some really weird news that came out. We've talked about this upcoming show on the podcast here a few times, and X-Men 97, the animated show that's actually debuting on March 20th. Disney just fired the X-Men 97 creator. So that's kind of a
Wow.
strange turn of events a week before the show's debuting on Disney Plus. So I'm going to totally butcher his name, but Bio De Mayo is the creator of X-Men 97. He's been like the lead on it, and he's worked
Yeah.
on season 1 and also did work on a season 2, I guess they're going to be doing. So this is a quote from, I think, Hollywood Reporter or Variety, where it's a kind of a background on him. He's, quote, "a Marvel regular who previously wrote on live-action series Moon Knight, as well as early drafts of the company's delayed but still upcoming vampire thriller Blade." And it was really odd because no official reason was given by Marvel or Disney for the firing, and he also deleted all his social media. I guess he was pretty active on Instagram and stuff
Mm-hmm.
and other social media, and he just deleted it all, and really no statement was given. The story goes on to say his from the Hollywood Reporter, his company email was deactivated, and the cast and crew were informed he was no longer on the project, and there's no reason for the firing. And I guess he was supposed to do media tours for the show's promotion, and he's now off that.
Wow.
There was kind of a quote. I'm not sure there's an older quote or something that was more recent, but it was just told to Variety from the executive producer on the show, Brad Winderbaum, who's talking about DeMaio. He said he did excellent work writing season 1 and 2, and I can't wait for fans to see the series. The entire team came together to create a revival worthy of the X-Men's 60-year legacy. From Stan and Jack to Claremont to the Leewalds, we all truly were standing on the shoulders of giants. So I don't know if that was a quote in regard to the firing, and that's something that was just said in the promotion of the show, but really just kind of quiet on Disney's side and the creator side. So I don't know. They're still promoting the show and talked about how great he did. So I don't think it was a
That's
thing of
very Very strange. What a great job this man did, right? He's gone now from the company, but yeah, what great work he did. It's just so strange.
So I think people were speculating like maybe he did, got into some trouble or had maybe there's some accusations going to come against him or something. This just hypothetical because usually you don't like fire somebody out of the blue or like that, or maybe they just had some sort of falling out. But a week before the show debuting, and it's kind of like a major show for Disney Plus, and like people are excited about it, and
Yeah,
you just fired the guy that made it. So that's an interesting.
very interesting. Yeah. Oh, I mean, if the guy did stuff, well, good. But if he didn't, man, this is bad.
Yeah, because usually they'll say like, "Oh, we parted ways," or
Over disagreement stuff, you know.
yeah, there's an investigation going on because of X, Y, or Z, but there was just like radio silence.
Hmm.
So, but the show, season one is done, and I guess there was season two stuff he worked on. So I don't know what that means for the future of the show. Because he's completely gone now, and like he said, he deactivated all his social media, so he's not really talking about it either. So interesting stuff, and some other Marvel stuff. Venom 3, the next Venom movie, is now called Venom: The Last Dance, and Tom Hardy is returning in his role as the lead Venom. No real plot details or anything like that. This was kind of known before to be coming out this year on November 8th, and now it's coming out October 25th, and it's got the official title of Venom: The Last Dance. I guess he's like Michael Jordan now. I don't know.
From the Sony side of Marvel, I guess so.
Yeah.
Because they got nothing going on over there. I mean, they got Madam Web that just bombed. I would consider Venom Michael Jordan at this point.
Yeah. So I don't know the Venom: Last Dance. I don't know how that relates to maybe a potential comic story or something, but I did
Mhm.
like the last movie with Carnage.
Yeah,
That was a really cool and fun movie, and I think Tom Hardy's gotten really better in that role. The first movie was just okay for me, but the second one was I thought was really good. I liked it.
that was really good too. He's one of my
So
favorite characters, so I'm also very excited. It doesn't matter if the movie's bad. I'll deny it just because I love Venom. So,
yeah, because like I think everybody loves Venom, and like these movies are still popular despite like
hmm,
maybe critical reviews aren't that great, but
yeah,
really not much is known about the story, but it's coming out later this year, so I'll probably go see that in theaters when it comes out.
same.
Something we won't be seeing in theaters pretty much anytime soon is the Batman 2, which has been delayed a year. Now it's coming out in 2026, on October 2nd, 2026. A whole year delay due to the strikes that happened in Hollywood with the writers and all that. So that's a whole year delay. Originally, it was supposed to come out October 3rd, 2025. Now there's another year delay, and this is a direct sequel to the Batman movie, the excellent Batman movie with Robert Pattinson. Yeah, so now that's a
I'm
bummer.
sad over this. I'm
Yeah,
really sad over this. But hey, I mean, due to the strikes, these people gotta get paid.
yeah. So that's a big delay for like a year. So they were probably hit pretty bad with that. I don't really think there's too much plot information. It just called the Batman 2. So obviously a direct sequel, but not really sure what they're going to do with that. So I'm sure
Mm.
at some point in the next 2 years we'll figure something out, or
Yeah.
more than 2 years actually. So yeah, that's all the news we had for the TV and movie side, and now we'll get into some gaming news. And starting off with the past week, a game is making a return that we alluded to at the top of the show, and this one is called Multiverse. It's back, and this was a kind of a Warner Brothers, Smash Brothers style game that had characters from DC Comics, Looney Tunes, other Warner Brothers properties, some Game of Thrones stuff too. So they were getting into the free to play online Smash Brothers genre. This was actually a really weird story because Multiverse actually was out for a couple of years ago. It came out in July 2022 and then was taken offline in March 2023 and was removed from all digital stores. And now it's coming back um, over a year later. And apparently this was always in like a called quote open beta. But the thing with like the original game is like it started off really popular and then the player count fell off. But they were still selling like season passes and cosmetic items, but for like an open beta, which you usually don't sell for like a game that's in demo stage. Usually that's more for like a full release, right?
Yeah.
So basically what happened, they took the game offline. It was basically unplayable, most of it. There was some single player stuff you could play offline, but all the money that people spent on like passes and other whatever stuff for the game, like they couldn't get refunds. And it was like, oh yeah, we're taking this game down and the open beta is over and we'll let you know when it comes back. And like it's a year later. So apparently this new version is still free to play. It's being rebuilt with Unreal Engine 5, and there's a quote. It's quote rebuilt from the ground up. It's going to have a brand new player versus everyone mode, and it's coming out for all PlayStation platforms and PC. So kind of a strange thing. I remember when this first came out, it was like people were interested in it, and it kind of died. And then there was like controversy because they took the game offline, but they were still selling season passes. Like the game was like, it didn't really seem like it was an open beta. It seemed like this was like a game that they like went back and labeled it open beta. But I guess it was always an open beta. But it's just so strange that
Yeah.
how they went about this. So did
This
you?
this is a bad situation. It's just one of those trends that you see, won't spread like wildfire, where they just do like, oh, open beta, and then they take the game offline. It's
Yeah,
just seeing video games turn out to be like this. It's kind of sad to see.
like I said, usually you don't see open betas selling with real money. Usually it's just like,
Yeah.
okay, this is a demo period, and like that's a long time for like an open beta, like 6 months or something, or longer
Mm-hmm.
than that, because it was July 22 to March 23. So that's a pretty. I think from my like looking at it, I think the game just like started off hot and then it bombed, and they're
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, let's just take this down. But then they ran into the problem that like, oh, people pay a ton of money for this, but we're not giving them refunds. So I think it was an interesting concept. Like, Warner does have a lot of properties like Looney Tunes and stuff like that, and the DC stuff. To put
Mm-hmm.
them in like a Smash Brothers fighting game, that does sound
Mm-hmm.
cool. And I just would be hesitant that like how it's going to be as far as like the quality of it, like especially with like its history.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I definitely wouldn't be spending money on it. I like me personally,
I wouldn't either. I mean,
given its
this,
history.
yeah, it's digital games. They're a big problem, man. This is only the beginning.
And I don't know what they could have done so drastically different to improve the game. I didn't play the quote
I
unquote open beta,
I,
so I don't
I
know.
played I played some, and it was, well. I just think games like this, Super Smash Brothers, just set the standard, and it's like if anything else tries to replicate what they've done with that series, it just comes off as a cheap knockoff, right? So it's really hard to make a Super Smash Bros. Style game from anyone else. We've seen Sony do it with their PlayStation All Stars. By the way, awful title for a game like that, right?
Yeah,
And then this right here, Multiverse, is very lazy, you know.
yeah.
So yeah,
Which
it
on
just
paper, it sounds like a cool concept because I could play like
yes.
Looney Tunes,
Hmm.
and then
I think
yeah,
the only people that have done kind of, I would say, a good job are the folks at Nickelodeon with their game.
yeah, they yeah, that's at least it was consistent.
Yeah, yeah, but
They
this
didn't.
right here,
Mhm.
man, is just
Um,
awful. This game stinks. It has that odor that just like, I was kind of shocked that it came back. Right, it's coming back, right, and it's just like, ugh, this game, it's just trash.
I kind of think like they had to because of that payment controversy.
Yeah.
Because people wanted their money back, and they're like, "Oh, don't worry, we're coming back." And like a year later, it's like, what? Well, people forgot about the game. It's like you got their money. Like they made sure to put that season pass in there, though, right? Get your money.
Do you think WB Games having a meeting every week? Like, hey man, are we coming back this week? I don't know yet, man.
I don't know. The
I
one
don't
thing I will
know.
say, because like there's another game we're going to talk about later in the show, as that also uses the engine, but Unreal Engine 5 does look pretty fantastic. So
Yes.
maybe the game will look and play better, but I don't know.
Uh, I don't know, man. I mean, you can make a game look pretty, but again, Super Smash Bros. Just set that standard, and it's really hard to really replicate what they've done. I don't know. That's just my opinion, though.
Yeah, and then this multiverse is a free to play game, so that you're naturally as a free to play game, you're going to have all the microtransactions and battle
Yes.
passes and
Yeah.
you know daily store updates and stuff like that. So
And then who would, I don't know, like, is it like, I would be scared to give a penny to these guys. They've taken the game off before.
yeah, in quick fashion too. I don't see it
Hmm.
lasting that long.
Same.
I think there'll be some initial hype, right? Because it's a new
Hmm.
release and they've, like a rebranding. But unless it's like drastically different, I think it's going to fade off again.
Yeah, I agree.
Just
I
just
think
like
that's what happened.
just like the quote unquote open beta did, right? I'm sure all the people that spent money were like, "Oh, this was an open beta. I didn't know that." Right? But apparently it was, so I don't know. But um, we talked about earlier in the show about Mario Day on March 10th, and around that time, Nintendo did announce some new Nintendo Switch games that are getting release dates now for this year, and they are both remasters of more recent. Oh, one of them is more recent. First-party Nintendo games. So Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door HD is coming out on May 23rd, and Luigi's Mansion 2 HD is going to be out on June 27th. Paper Mario has a quote features and it features enhanced graphics as well as new gameplay features, but they really didn't say much in the press release of that. And this was a GameCube game from 2004, so that is a 20-year-old game. While Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, it was originally called Luigi's Mansion 2 Dark Moon for the Nintendo 3DS in 2013. And now it's coming to the Switch as a HD port with high definition graphics there. So pretty good games. I guess these are more of the filling in that lineup for the year as they gear up for the Switch 2.
These are
So
great games right here.
really,
I love these two games. I've played them and incredible. Highly recommend it to anyone.
did you go through Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door? Did you beat that back
Oh, I
then?
never
Or
beat it, but I played it. It was a fun game.
yeah, I think I played it probably on the GameCube. Or maybe I played it on the Wii, like a backwards compatible thing. But 20 years old. I cannot believe that game is 20 years old already.
I know.
So, but Paper Mario is a legit series. Like they do some great stuff with that
Hmm.
franchise. It's like really awesome. So
Hmm.
those are two Switch games coming out this year. Some more official dates there. And in addition to that, Nintendo also announced a few Game Boy games coming to their Nintendo Switch Online subscription service. So the three games are all Mario themed, and they're Dr. Mario for the Game Boy that came out in 1990, Mario Golf for the Game Boy Color that came out in 1999, and Mario Tennis for the Game Boy Color that came out in the year 2000. And these will all be playable on the Nintendo Switch Online and Nintendo Switch Online expansion subscription service. So uh, each tier, one tier is $20 and the other tier is $50 a year. These should be playable in both tiers because they're not Game Boy Advance games. I believe Game Boy games are in both, but Game Boy Advance games are only in the $50 tier. So they do keep updating this service with some new games. We talked about a couple weeks ago when Nintendo did their partner show.
Hmm.
They announced a bunch of rare games, rare developer games coming to the platform, Switch
Hmm.
Online. So now they got these Mario games coming out, and I'm kind of almost tempted to sign up because I do remember playing the crap out of Mario Tennis on the Game Boy Color.
Really?
Played it. I played that so much. I think I rented it from like Blockbuster as
That's
a
a name I haven't
kid.
heard in a long time.
Right? Two things you haven't heard of: Game Boy Color, Blockbuster, in the year 2000, all coming
Literally.
together. But I did rent that as a kid and really played that. It was a really awesome game, especially for the time. Like playing it on
Hmm.
Game Boy Color, it was like super super fun. Dr. Mario is like one of those classic games too. It's kind of old, but
Yeah.
that was one of like the big. I remember like in the early '90s on the Game Boy. And Mario Golf, I don't think I played that one. I might have briefly on the Game Boy Color. But are you?
I'm noticing a pattern that you're very into the sports games, but with Mario on it.
Yeah, they're fun. I've always liked the Mario stuff. I mean, even like into like the next generation, like the GameCube, they had like Super Mario Strikers,
Yeah,
the soccer game, which was really
yeah,
awesome.
which by the way, the Switch version is incredible. I like it too.
Yeah, I still need to play that. I might even own that. I don't know if I own that or not. I kind of lose track of what games I have and don't. But
I know.
I don't have a copy of Mario Tennis anymore, nor do I have a Game Boy Color. So that's something I really want to play. But yeah, Nintendo celebrating Mario Day with these 3 games. Are you gonna check these out, or not really?
I really want to play Dr. Mario from '90. That's that game, and I would like to revisit Luigi's Mansions too, because I played it on the 3DS. I never got to beat that game, I think, so I would definitely like to try it out on Switch and actually finish it.
Go back and play that. Yeah. So
Yes.
Nintendo's full effect celebrating Mario. He's got his own day, bunch of game announcements, and then like we talked about earlier, the big movie announcement. But moving on here to some Final Fantasy news that we talked about earlier in the show. This one is for Final Fantasy 16, and the game has been confirmed to head to PC probably pretty soon or in the near future. So according to the producer on the game, Yoshida, who talked to Game Informer, the PC version is in its final stages, and it will have a demo at some point, but there's no hard release date at the moment. And he's got a quote here. He told Game Informer, it says, quote, "In terms of where we are in development currently, we're trying to figure out the final stages of optimization right now. When we can release the PC version might be dependent on that, the system requirements and specifications for PC that players will need. So we're trying to figure that out naturally. In parentheses, the PC specifications are looking to be somewhat high. So this is a game that first released last June in 2023 as a PlayStation 5 console exclusive. And it was kind of known that it would come to PC at some point. But now we got more confirmation that, they're heading towards the finish line. And I would assume it's coming out this year.
Yeah, probably in November. What do you think?
Yeah, probably maybe summer. He's talking about it's in the final stages and they got a demo. So
Shoot, he's
maybe
ready then.
maybe in the summer or fall. Maybe it
Maybe
depends on.
September on there. Yeah.
But highly recommend if those any PC players out there were holding out, because they want to play it on their PC rig, that you check this game out, because I really liked Final Fantasy 16. It was one of my favorite games from last year. I finished it on PS5, and really great game that kind of
game.
got me back into the RPG stuff. So coming to PC, and yeah, so no mention of Xbox or Nintendo Switch or anything. It's doing a PC port there. So
who wins here then?
PC gamers, right?
Yeah, only
yeah. PC gamers. And going off to Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, which we talked about, that Lewis was playing at the top of the show. There's a card game in there called Queen's Blood that could see potentially more content. And this was an interview that I'm gonna butcher this guy's name too, Naoki Hamaguchi, who is the director of. I said it right?
Yeah.
Awesome, dude. We should do like a sound effect every time I say a name right or something, right? Like get like a buzzer or something.
Yeah.
Come on down. So he was the director, or is the director, of Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, and like I said, he did an interview with Red Bull where he basically talked a lot about the game and Final Fantasy 7's history and his kind of mindset about making the game and things like that. Really good interview. Check it out. I will have that in the show notes for this episode. But in that interview, he was asked about Queen's Blood, which is the card game in FF7 Rebirth.
Man.
And he has a quote here. He says, "We haven't decided anything in terms of future development for Queen's Blood, but so far the media who played it have provided very positive feedback on it, so we want to consider further expansions as a possibility."
Okay, so I just want to say that this game, this card game, I hate it, but I love playing it. That's the freaking.
Does it
you
get
guys
harder?
have to play this game.
I mean,
for me, it's tough, right? Because you're thinking you're making all the right moves, and then all of a sudden, the computer you're going against is just comes back, right? And you're just like, oh, what did I do wrong? It's a fun, addicting game. And it's kind of sad because I'm about to go on vacation, and it's like, oh man, I better not see anybody play Queen's Blood out there because I'll throw down, bro.
In real life, right?
In real life.
Somebody made
Yeah,
like a fan version, like on like
yeah,
cardboard or something, right?
yeah. I'll put the Buster Sword down. Let me see, man. I played before.
Yeah. Um, I think it's interesting that I think they will do an expansion.
I think so too.
I don't know if they would do like a full game or something, but
Hey,
I
man, they
think.
make pinball games, all right? So I can see this. I can see
Mhm.
Square Enix kind of making something for this.
But I know a lot of people online are really enjoying it. From what I played
Hmm.
so far, I really like it.
Hmm.
I would definitely play. I mean, card games are like super popular. There's so many gaming card games like you can play on consoles and PC, and just like real life card games, but people still play. So it's definitely a popular genre.
Yeah.
Especially when you combine that with Final Fantasy VII. I think if they were even to do like a real life Queen's Blood, they would sell like gangbusters.
Oh, yeah. I agree.
If they did like some sort of real deck building card based thing in real life, like that would sell out instantly.
We would definitely have to do the standoff thing they do before like the game starts, and like in the
Right,
game.
just do that in like real life with everybody. Like that wouldn't be like awkward, right? Um, but yeah, I thought that was interesting. It's a really good interview in general, so check that out in the show notes. That's from Red Bull. And moving on to some other gaming news here, a new studio has been made or announced that it's now officially out there. And the studio is called Empty Vessel. It's basically one word in all lowercase. That's how they're stylizing it. So Empty Vessel as one word. I thought this kind of announcement was more interesting than some of the other ones out there that we hear about from like AAA studios, because this one features ex id Software, Naughty Dog, and Activision people. And they're based in Austin, Texas. So, id Software, Austin, Texas was like the home of the first person shooter creation. And it has a lot of people from Doom that worked on the recent Doom games. And they've already announced their first game is called The System. It's going to be a shooter game, and they're using Unreal 5 engine. And what's really interesting, too, is they got Mick Gordon, who is the kind of awesome composer who did the music for the last two Doom reboot games. So his music's going to be in the system. He's on board with Empty Vessel. And they have some people who were like, they had a concept artist that was on Doom Eternal and Doom 2016 who's in the studio. And let me just kind of check out here some of the other names here. Um, what was your initial impressions of hearing about this studio?
It's about time we get some good news. Some people getting work and really interesting roster. Wouldn't you
Yeah.
agree?
Yeah, so here, this is an article from Game Developer. It says the studio is led by CEO Emmanuel Palalik and COO Garrett Young, both of whom held key roles at Doom Maker id Software. Former Weta digital coder Wei Ning will serve as technical director, and former Gearbox software systems designer Kevin Powell has been appointed senior design director. Other notable hires include animation director Rico Flores, who previously worked on the Uncharted franchise at Naughty Dog, and art director Alex Palma, another id Software and Doom alum. Doom and Wolfenstein composer Mick Gordon has also joined the team alongside former Call of Duty artist and Doom Eternal senior producer Dan Modich. So their goal is to aim for AAA quality with smaller focused teams. And this is all from Game Developer. The article will be linked in the show notes. You can get more information there. So I'm interested in the studio. I was like really like, oh, okay, this sounds really awesome, right? Because like it's kind of checking off all the boxes that I like for like a first person shooter. You had like people that worked on the recent Doom games. It's software. It's based in Austin, Texas, right? It's kind of like famous for game development. But there is an issue too. So they put out a press release, like an official type thing, right? And
Hmm.
basically in this press release, it kind of came out that a man named Dan Bunting is one of the investors. So they have a group of different investors who were contributing funding for the studio. And the thing with this guy is, which I didn't know offhand, but it kind of jogged my memory. He is a former Treyarch co-studio head who is among the investors, and this is from a Polygon report and also a combination with the Wall Street Journal. Bunting left the Call of Duty studio in 2022 after a Wall Street Journal report stated he'd been investigated for sexually harassing a female employee after a night of drinking in
Oh
2017.
man.
And what makes this even worse is that there was an internal investigation done at Activision. And this is a quote from Polygon, I believe. It says the result of the investigation recommended that Bunting be fired, the journal reports, but Kotick, this is Bobby Kotick, the former CEO of Activision, but Kotick intervened and Bunting was allowed to keep his position. So this was part of the whole culture and harassment issues that Activision was going through at the time, and probably one of the reasons why they were eventually sold to Microsoft, because like the company culture was just so corrupted. So I was initially really excited for the studio, and then you read like, why of all people did they need to get funding from someone like this,
Yeah.
right?
Considering that there's other people from Activision here, like this guy, he's here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he has a direct development role,
Mm-hmm.
because if you go on the company website for Empty Vessel, it's a really small studio. It's probably like less than like 15 people. So they're
Mm-hmm.
trying to do this like, oh, we're AAA team with a smaller group. But he's not on like the main page as like, oh, he's working on the game or something. But in this press release, they list a bunch of other investors, and he's one of them.
Yeah.
So it's like you couldn't get money from somebody else.
Someone else. Yeah.
So I
I
don't
wouldn't
know
accept.
if
I
I
wouldn't
don't know
accept the
if
dude's money.
no, yeah, I don't know if again, I don't really know. I have to look further into it if he was what that case went, if he was ever convicted of something or something like that. But they didn't do an internal investigation at Activision. He was found guilty, and he was recommended to be fired at the time. And he's still in the game industry at some point. So that's kind of a weird, not a great thing to start with a new studio. But
Yeah.
it was kind of buried in like the news of that. But overall, before that, I was pretty excited. So
Yeah. Same here until that.
but they are working on I think just like the game they're working on, the system sounds interesting. It's all early concept, I think, at this point, but just kind of like the team they've assembled, and they have Mick Gordon on there, so it's probably okay if you're going to do a shooter, he's the
Yeah.
guy you want the music
He's a
for.
guy. He's a man.
So again, no release date, nothing like that. This was basically just an announcement of the studio being made. So a lot of these, you do see a lot of these announcements of like, oh, former studio head is doing a AAA studio here and there, and it's like, okay, whatever. But I think this one stuck out to me more just based on the personnel they had, but then it's kind of also mixed with some not so great news. So that's the announcement of that studio, and another announcement here: the finals season 2 has been announced and launched this week. So the season 2 of the multiplayer game, the finals, is out now on March 14th. Actually came out today. So this is the second season of this first-person shooter online game, which is free to play, and it has various kind of items you can buy, I believe so, or they have like maybe like a battle pass or something. I did play this for several hours, like when it first came out a couple months ago, and haven't gone back to it, so I might come back to it now. But these updates to season 2 are new weapons and abilities for light, medium, and heavy characters. There's a new map that has a really weird spelling. It's called Sis Horizon, but it's got like dollar signs in it. So I don't know what that's about. But
Yeah,
there's a new play style where it's called the hacker play style, or I guess you can hack characters and stuff or whatever. And there's a new 5 versus 5 game mode called Power Shift, where in this mode you have each team trying to escort a platform that moves throughout the arena that can keep smashing in through buildings. So that's really interesting. It's kind of like I don't know, capture the flag, King of the Hill type thing.
Interesting.
But the finals is known for its kind of destructive environments. So when you're playing the game, you can like blow up buildings and do a bunch of crazy stuff. So I don't know what the player base is this, if it's still going strong, but I originally really liked this game a couple months ago when it launched, and now they're going into season 2. So have you played this game at all, or are you interested in jumping in now that season 2 has started?
The game is fun. By the way, we played this game together, I think, for like 20 minutes.
I don't remember that.
You don't remember?
I don't remember that. Yeah.
You don't remember that? Wow.
Yeah.
But anyways,
It must have not been that memorable, right? I don't.
yeah, no, because I kept dying. I know that the
Mhm.
game's pretty fun though. I do like the maps. The Vegas map. Remember you hated the Vegas map?
Yeah. Again, I don't remember.
You
I
don't
plead the
remember?
fifth. I plead the fifth. I don't
You
remember.
played the fifth.
Mhm.
Okay, Tim sometimes is known for like liking things and then hating them later, kind of.
And
So
I also have a bad memory.
when we come back, he's gonna love the
Uh-huh.
map.
Yeah. I also have a really bad memory, so like I forget stuff. Like so. I mean, um,
Well, the game's awesome. I know. So I'm interested in that five versus five game, the Power Shift. The game is pretty fun from what I played. So I'm kind of interested in seeing the new weapons they're going to come out with.
yeah. So this is out. I guess it launched today. On the day we're recording the podcast, March
Sweet.
14th. So usually when they do new seasons and stuff, it kind of is a good time to jump in.
Hmm.
I don't remember what their. I know they had like challenges you could do if you logged in and did certain challenges and stuff like that. I'd have to go back and really play the game, but I do remember when it launched, like a ton of people were like interested in it. And this is on consoles, PS5, Xbox Series X, and it's also on PC, I believe, through Steam.
Hmm.
So season 2, great time to jump back into that game, and it's free to play. But again, there's stuff that you can buy in the game, I guess, to support the team, and that's how they make their money. Um, Another remake that just got announced this week. It's coming to consoles. It's been out for a year already, but System Shock Remake is now heading to PlayStation and Xbox consoles. So it's launching this May, but basically about a year after its initial PC release. And this is developed by Night Dive Studios, who are really great, known for doing bringing a lot of the retro games to modern audiences and different type of packages. This being one of them, and it's a remake of the 1994 game by Looking Glass Studios, which is kind of heavily regarded as an all-time great classic influential game with its kind of like sci-fi setting, and it was kind of like BioShock before BioShock in a way, influenced games like BioShock and Deus
Hmm.
Ex X. According to a Eurogamer.net article, I'll just read the quote here. Night Dive is promising HD visuals running up to 60 frames per second in 4K on PS5 and Xbox Series X/S, an overhauled interface, and all new sounds and music as seen in the PC version. That's alongside additional enhancements for consoles, including redesigned controls for gamepads, as well as a revised ending that upgrades the final confrontation with Shodan and an optional female hacker protagonist. So it's kind of a lot of new content for the console version.
It's pretty cool.
And I
I
believe,
never got to play this game, so I will be buying this.
yeah, all these updates that we just talked about here, they should be coming to the PC version as well. So you'll have the other new protagonist and some of the other updates and too. I do want to play this. I really do, because I like System Shocks. Always there was a couple System Shocks. I believe there was 2 of them, and then Night Dive did like a System Shock enhanced version or something that was like a
Mhm.
kind of semi remake or remaster. And now this remake is like a full on like like new graphic style, like the game came out like if it came out in modern times. So it's always one of those franchises that I wanted to play, just never did. But it was a very influential game from the 90s, and Night Dive's got a good rep for doing this stuff. So I will. I mean, I could probably get this on PC, right? Because I have a PC that could play it if I really wanted
What have
to.
you been waiting for?
I don't know. Yeah, what have I been waiting for? I don't know. Just for this moment, right? I waited a whole year.
I mean, you
Uh,
haven't played Zelda. You could have beaten this by now.
Dude, there's too many games. But
Yeah.
are you gonna get this for a console? You think when it comes out?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Um, but it's also been on Steam for about a year. So if you have a PC that can play it, if the game sounds interesting, they did put out a new trailer. Looks great, and the new features should be coming to the PC version as well. If I do play it on PC, I'll probably just wait, because if they're going to update the game, uh, I'll just wait till all this new stuff comes in.
Oh, so you
Um,
had info, huh? That's why you didn't buy it.
yeah, I knew a year ahead of time that was going to happen. I was going to wait the entire time, but that's pretty cool. Like they're adding like a new character and
Yeah.
all this stuff. So definitely a game to keep an eye on. Launching this May. And another remaster, one of my kind of I wouldn't say most loved games, but I guess I really had a good time with it. Shadows of the Damned Hella Remastered announced. So that's hella like, oh, that's hella cool. It's the official new title for the remastered of Shadow of the Damned. Still no firm release date or consoles were announced, but presumably it's going to come out, PlayStation and Xbox Series X or something. The game was first announced in June 2023, but the news that came out this week is of Shadow of the Damned, the actual name, Hella Remastered, and its creator, its eccentric creator, Suda51, is going to be at PAX, and there's going to be a playable version of the game, I believe, and he's also going to be like challenging people. I have to like look up the quote because it was kind of like crazy, like what he's going to be doing at PAX. I'll just read the quote here. Grasshopper manufacturer, founder, and CEO Suda51 will also be at PAX East 2024. Attendees will be able to challenge Suda51 to blackjack at the booth to win an autographed set of Shadow of the Damned coasters. A, quote, maniac level, quote, Shadows of the Damned quiz will also be held, with the first 6 winners of which will receive a stupidly fabulous custom Shadow of the Damned ring. So this game is pretty crazy. This was originally a PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 game.
I love this game.
Yeah, it came out in 2011. So do you have any memories of the original?
I just remember the gun was amazing. That's about it. Like if I were to go to PAX and take the quiz, I would totally fail.
Oh yeah.
But I just remember having a good time with it. It was this game, and I want to say Lollipop Chainsaw were my 2 360 games that I just really loved playing at the time.
Yeah, the Lollipop Chainsaw, the original, it's like worth a ton of money, I think. But that's also coming a remaster. This, like I said, it was originally a game from 2011 for the PS3 and Xbox 360, developed by Grasshopper manufactured and was published by Electronic Arts. And interestingly, Shinji Mikami was one of the producers of the game, who is the Resident Evil franchise creator. So that's kind of like a great creative force.
Yeah.
The original game is backwards compatible on Xbox, but you might need a physical copy to play it because it's not being sold on the digital store. But essentially in this game, you play as a demon hunter named Garcia Hotspur, who has a talking gun named Johnson. I guess you can figure out what that's supposed to reference. And they go to hell to rescue his kidnapped girlfriend. And basically what I remember, I got pretty far in the game. I didn't beat it. I think I stopped playing it.
Oh, you never beat it?
I got
this
really
game
far.
was so fun, yeah.
I got really, it's like those games you play, you get really far, and then something happens, and you just stop playing it.
Yeah.
So I had it on PS3, and I think I sold it too. I wish I would have kept my copy, but it was a really interesting kind of third-person action shooter game. Really funny, really creative. Right? I don't think there was a lot of games like it at the time, but it does kind of need updating, I think, for the controls and stuff.
Yes, I agree.
So if you're in the PAX, I think that's in Seattle. If you're in the Seattle area, you're going to go to PAX, you can challenge Suda51 to blackjack. That's got to be a strange experience. And get your Shadows of the Damned merch there. So no official release date, but at least it's got a title now. So that's at least some progress there. And moving on to some other game studio news. We talked about this on a previous episode of the show that Saber Interactive, who was formerly under Embracer Group, has been sold for $247 million. And the sale is now finalized, and it was sold to Saber's co-founder Matthew Karch, who started a new company called Beacon Interactive. And under this deal, the studio Saber is allowed to take some of its development teams with it, which include Nimble Giant, 3D Realms, Sandbox Strategies, New World Interactive, Slipgate, Madhead Games, Fractured Byte, and Digic. So they got some good studios there they're taken with as part of the deal. Going to be operating as a completely independent company from Embracer. And according to GameIndustry.biz, quote, it will also retain IPs and future publishing rights for a variety of titles, including various unannounced AA and AAA projects, in addition to Killing Floor 3 and Teardown. And there was some quotes from the CEO of Embracer and then the new owner of Beacon Interactive, basically saying like, yeah, we're just leaving each other and it's a win-win for everybody.
It really is.
So they were probably happy to get away from.
Yeah.
So it kind of sounds like it's going to be Saber still. It's just not with Embracer because they got the guy that's the co-founder, running things still. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, they have some good studios, 3D Realms, Slipgate, decent portfolio there. So
Yeah.
now they are independent. So that's been finalized. It was kind of rumored for a couple weeks, and now it's official. So Saber Interactive is Bon Voyage with Embracer. So, and game announcements here. Really interesting game that I was super interested in, called No One Wants to Die. Who does, right? But
Yeah,
No One
I
Wants.
announced that whenever I was born.
Yeah, when you were like 2 hours old. I don't want to
Yeah.
die.
Yeah.
So a game No One Wants to Die is coming out for PlayStation consoles, Xbox, and PC on Steam. And this is a detective noir game set in a dystopian future in New York City in like 300 years in the future, where basically the rich have access to eternal life by storing their consciousness in memory banks or even like swapping out their consciousness from body to body. But unfortunately, there's a pesky thing called the serial killer running around New York City, killing all the rich and elites, so they don't get to live forever. So
Hmm.
you are tasked with being a detective to solve these murders, and it has a kind of an interesting cyberpunk kind of Blade Runner look to the game, where you can use time manipulation to put together crime scenes and manipulate time back and forth to like gather clues and things like that. The main character has an augmentation on his left arm, which is like a time manipulation type tool. And the description of the game says it's going to be able to do other advanced technology stuff from the game to play it. So I love detective games. I thought this was like really cool. It's being made with Unreal Engine 5, so it looks really fantastic. The trailer was great. And it's being made by a small independent Polish studio. So did you check this out? Do you have any thoughts on it?
I'm still gonna reserve my judgment to when I play the game. It looks great though.
Yeah, it's going to be, the trailer was more a cinematic thing, but it's going to be a first person viewpoint based on some of the screenshots that are on Steam. So, but I, was really, really hyped for this one. I just like love that combination of stuff. It's coming out this year, but they didn't have a firm release date for that.
Yeah.
So keep an eye on that. No One Wants to Die. And if you want to read more about the game, we'll have an article in this episode show notes. And moving on to some other news here about another game studio. It's kind of another interesting story. Starbreeze removes their CEO Tobias Sorgen after issues with Payday 3. So Tobias was the CEO for 3 years, and he's gone. He's out. And Starbreeze has a new interim CEO who is actually one of the company's board members and a former CEO of Focus Home Interactive, who's got over 40 years in the game industry. So I think this is all related to Payday 3 and just like all the issues that game had. So for those who aren't aware, Payday 3 released last September 2023, and they did some changes to the game, making it like online only. And at launch, it had a bunch of server issues for like weeks. So people were having issues there. That's always a game killer. And apparently some of the stuff can't be played single player at all. So you're kind of stuck
Wow.
waiting for that online. You couldn't play it offline with bots or whatever. Because Payday 1 and 2 were very successful games, very popular across PC and consoles. But Payday 3, if you look up Payday 3 on Steam, it's got mostly negative reviews, user reviews on Steam. And they just made a bunch of changes that people didn't like, and the game underperformed in terms of sales and, of course, critical reviews, because if the game doesn't work, I mean, it's not
Yeah.
going to do well. But it's interesting because it did launch day one on Xbox Game Pass, and I did play it a little bit, and it was fine. It just wasn't a game I like really stuck with. But I know like those Payday players are like really hardcore about the franchise,
Hmm.
and if you just look up the reviews, people are just like ragging this game pretty hard. So it was pretty bad where the CEO's got to leave, That
Yeah.
probably directly related to that. They don't say like he's leaving because of Payday 3, but like why else would he be?
Why else? Yeah.
He was
After the
removed by the
big,
company.
after the big Bamba.
hmm So that game, I think it still has issues. I think they're still working on getting it to a point where it needs to be, but I don't know if that game's going to recover.
Yeah.
I think they really pissed off the community, which is not a good idea in these
After
cases.
having two successful games like that, yeah, it's
hmm
hard to trust them. Yeah.
And kind of an interesting thing, we talked about some Game Boy games earlier. A Game Boy Advance game from 22 years ago is now finally releasing. So I guess better late than never, right?
I
22 years
guess. Yeah.
later. This game is called Keen, Kien, which is a action RPG platformer. It's going to release in Q2 of this year, 2024, and it was canceled all the way back in 2002 for a couple different reasons. I think it had issues with its publisher, or like getting it out there because the game was essentially done. There was even review copies sent out to outlets at the time. Got this decent reviews, but the game just never came out. And now it's actually coming out. We have a quote here. Its revival and upcoming release is the work of retro publisher Incubate with it's a 8, the letter 8, Incubate, and indie development studio Age of Games. The game's original developer now rebranded. So there's going to have a physical game version. So you can, like, if you have a Game Boy Advance or 3DS, you can plug it in there and play it. Looks okay, but kind of an interesting story where the game was basically done 22 years ago, and then review copies were sent out, and the game was just canceled.
It's
So
insane.
very strange. I do know a lot of people do like, especially in the retro community, they like having that old copy of a game. Like they'll buy
Yeah.
Atari cartridges or NES ROMs or something. So I think it's targeting those people.
Mhm.
Don't
Will
know if
you
it's
be
gonna.
trying this game?
No, I will not. I would. I was gonna say I would have 22 years ago, but
Yeah. You were
not
like, I
not.
was 12. I had time. Now, not so much.
Yeah, I mean, it looks okay. I'm not really interested in me personally, but it is cool that the guy like stuck with it, and or the
Yeah.
development team, they're finally releasing it. I don't know what happened in the past 22 years where now they're doing it compared to
I
maybe
thought
when like
I thought Duke Nukem Forever was bad, but this is like, wow.
yeah. Well, at least this game was like finished, right? Like completed.
Yeah.
I think it got like middle of the road review scores, like 3 out of 5 type stuff.
Well, at least it ain't bad, you know?
Yeah. There's definitely an audience for this type of game and this type of release, especially partnering with that type of like publisher.
Mhm.
I don't think there was news about it coming to like PlayStation Store and Steam and stuff. I think it's kind of following this like retro themed. But I guess if you're interested in that, you can check that out. I think maybe retro collectors might, because it's kind of an interesting release of a Game Boy Advance game. And then finally here we have we've been talking about Steam here across the show. The Steam's spring sale starts today. So Steam's big week-long discounts on its storefront starts today, March 14th, all the way through March 21st. And basically a ton of games are on sale. And they're doing stuff where you can get, I believe, like stickers for your account and other kind of sale-related items added to your Steam account. So these Steam sales are always a great time to pick up some games you might have missed. Usually a lot of stuff's discounted heavily, 50% off, 75% off. A lot of indie stuff on sale. I was actually looking at System Shock 2, and if you're interested in that, we just talked about that. It's actually on sale on Steam right now for $20, so 50% off. So that's a game that's on there. Was looking at Wasteland 3 potentially. The turn-based strategy game that's on sale for $8. So a lot of good stuff on there. You can check that out. That just started today. You don't have Steam, so you don't check this stuff out, right, Lewis? You don't.
Of course not. I mean,
No.
I mean, I know people like to say, "Oh man, PC's where it's at," but I've kind of related to that meme now, where like they'll have somebody say like, "Oh yeah, PC's better than console," and then the guy will refute back with, "But is your PC better than the console?" So
Yeah, my PC's hanging in there, so I'm not gonna. I probably won't get anything. because I have such a backlog already. But just for all the listeners out there, if you have a Steam account, interested in checking out some cheap games, that's a great way to do it. And I believe that's all we have for the show this week. So that's all the news items here. And before we wrap up the show, just want to remind everybody how they can listen and subscribe to future episodes. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, so subscribe on there. Make sure to follow us on our social media accounts. And we also have a feedback survey that we would love for you listeners out there to respond to and give us some feedback about what you think of the show and a little bit about yourself to help us make these episodes better. And if you have any comments about this particular episode, you can email us to feedback@quarterdisorderpodcast.com or go to the show notes at quarterdisorderpodcast.com and leave a comment on there, and we will be sure to check it out. So that's all we have for this week, and thanks for listening.